So this week, I will not be joining you all for the sacred gathering. Our friends Heather and Carlos have been kind enough to both host and lead the discussion. So we'll be doing kind of another discussion, a conversation. This is a kind of a classic one we've looked at several times over the years. Just on the idea of reconciliation. What is the place of reaching out to those who maybe are different from us? What is the place of a thriving life involving others who may not always get along with, who don't agree with us? So, as always, in these kind of recordings before a table talk or a conversation, I will read the questions, I will read the quotes, but of course, the meat is going to be what you all come up with this upcoming Sunday. So, let me just start by reading the questions and the quotes. So, can you think of a time you had a complete 180-degree change in your attitude or opinion? What caused this change? Was there a person involved? Do you have any opinions or views that aren't generally accepted or set you apart? Why do you hold on to these views or beliefs despite disagreement from others? So then we'll look at a passage out of 1 Corinthians chapter 5. So then, from this point on, we won't recognize people by human standards. Even though we used to know Christ by human standards, this isn't how we know him now. So then, if anyone is in Christ, that person is part of a new creation. The old things have gone away, and look, new things have arrived. All of these new things are from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ, and who gave us the ministry of reconciliation. In other words, God was reconciling the world to himself through Christ by not counting people's sins against them. He has trusted us with this message of reconciliation. So we are ambassadors who represent Christ. God is negotiating with you through us. We beg you as Christ's representatives, be reconciled to God. God caused the one who didn't know sin to be sin for our sake, so that through him we could become the righteousness of God. Our next quote comes from a couple of people who specialize in reconciliation and moving into those places of conflict, and their book called Mending the Divides. The restoration of all things was in God's view from the very beginning. God is the great peacemaker who established the priority of peace and the practice of peacemaking throughout history. God and Jesus embodied the peacemaking practices of seeing, immersing, and contending in order to restore shalom. In the life and death of Jesus, God waged the decisive peace promised to Abraham. The resurrection confirmed that all things were reconciled to God. Peacemaking is the mission of God and the vocation of God's people. While it's hard work, peacemaking is neither a strategy to employ nor an obligation to uphold. It is a life fueled by our identity as the reconciled beloved of God. And so here are the discussion questions on those two quotes. Has this experience of being a new creation been a single event or an ongoing process for you? What have been some of the major changes you have seen under Christ's influence? And why must our work of reconciling with others flow from our reconciliation of God? Are there people you fundamentally disagree with or simply cannot understand their perspective? How do these people fit into this discussion? What does this look like in our hyper-polarized culture? What does the work of reconciliation look like for you personally? Whom do you know that might be in need of reconciliation? And another quote talking about just kind of the thriving life that I've used many times from Wolf and Crossman's For the Life of the World. The love of the triune God on the journey of redemption through history is a love that often has to suffer. As it is in God's life and Christ's life, so it is, analogically, with the lives of those called and empowered by the Spirit to be Christ's to the world and to participate in Christ's mission, except that they too are part of the world that has not fully become God's home. A tension marks the life they live in this world, a struggle, internal and private, as well as social, even structural and public, for the true life in the midst of a false one. Christ came to call people to a flourishing life. Guided by God's kind of love and empowered by God's Spirit, all of us are called to flourish fully in the world become God's home and partially on the journey there, rejoicing even while we have to mourn, accepting lack willingly so that the needs of others can be satisfied, leading lives of courage and integrity as we struggle against the evils of this age, trusting and loving God, participating in God's mission in the world, and in all this growing into our own human fullness. So, what is the role of God's kingdom and the flourishing life in this discussion of reconciliation? And what does it look like to work alongside those whose dramatically different visions of the good life from ourselves? So again, I look forward to hearing how the discussion goes as we are wrestling with the idea of different visions of the flourishing life, of reconciliation with God, and how we extend that to a world and following God's mission of reconciliation.